Oh, it should be recording now. Interesting. Okay, cool. All right, so my name is Jennifer Perretta. I have been with CDC for a little bit over a year, and I work in HR, specifically focused on anything related to HR, but my passion is D&I, so I drive a lot of that work with the Fusion team and Everyone Committee.
Cool.
Sweet.
I'm Jamie Rose Jr., on-premise key account manager, handle local chains in the Denver metro market, and celebrating 22 years with CDC on Monday.
Wow. I did not know you were there that long.
Yeah, get a good run, man.
Right. Okay. Yeah, this is Brandon James, on-premise sales representative for the airport and surrounding areas. I've been with CDC for 9 years now.
Wow, both of you have had quite a few years at the company.
Yeah, good run.
um, so I guess as we to kick things off, I just really, especially both of you, have had a lot of experience and a lot of years at CDC. Can you describe the differences of how things have evolved from when you first started and how things are now from the point view of a person of color in the workplace?
Sure, Brandon, can I go first on this one?
Yeah, go for it.
So, in my 22 years, being most of it on the on-premise side of the business, I can say that, I was the only black male or person of color on the sales team entirely. We only had one other black person of color that was a driver, but he didn't last very long. He wound up doing his own thing. So, for a long time, it was only me. Um, and, there were times where I just didn't have anywhere to turn, didn't have anybody to talk to about certain issues that were coming up early in my career in the market with the color of my skin. So I would take them home with me and be frustrated, but I'd talk to my father about things, and he'd be the one that would guide me through those situations. So for me, it wasn't until later on when Brandon James came on board and came onto the on-premise, what we started to see was from about 2010 to now, Coors being more open to hiring people of color, both in the retail side, on-premise side, and as far as the delivery side too. So it has evolved over the years. We've gotten a lot better with communicating that we are a diverse and an inclusive company. Obviously, we've got a long way to go, but from where I've stood to being the only one to now to having close to 20 employees of color, particularly black males, I would say we've made great strides. Are we done? Absolutely not. But from where we were, where we started to where we are now, I'm very pleased and happy to see where we've made strides.
Sweet. Yeah, you know what? I mean, kind of saying the same thing that Jamie said. You walk into a room and see really only one or two faces similar to yours. But with that being said, my experience at CDC has been great. Like they've done CDC has done a lot for me. Not to say that every single person inside the CDC is sensitive to what's going on, or anything that could have taken place years back, but overall my experience has been positive and good.
So from a personal level, why is seeing other people that look like you in the workplace important to you?
Just to be able to have someone that you can actually relate to, um, and it's really not even that either. I mean, yeah, it's that too, but it's just it's a matter of comfort and I would just say comfort, really. It's just nice to see faces of many different races, not just black faces. It's just, I went to college in Vegas, so we saw everything out there always, and it was just like a perfect blend, and nothing ever really had anything to do with race ever. So it's just having experienced that, it would be nice to have that, no matter where.
Yeah, and to top that, I would say to add to that, just the fact that we work for an inclusive company, a company that's working on diversity. it helps myself and Brandon out in the market, because there are some idiots that'll ask the question, oh, how could you work for Coors? They this and this back in the 70s and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you know what? That was the 70s. We've come a long way to be the diverse, inclusive company that we are. So for myself, it's kind of, I accept the challenge when they ask me that question, how could you work for such a company? And then when I educate them on, the things we've done and where we are now, it kind of puts them in their place. So I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, those are great points, and it actually makes me, curious. So, what makes you feel seen at the company or any workplace, right? Like as a person of color, like what would make you feel seen, heard as an individual?
I think me and Brandon have very outgoing personalities, and I think people gravitate towards that. We don't bring any negativity with us wherever we are. And I think people can gravitate to that and really appreciate it. I know, places that I've been where, Brandon's a sales rep, they love him. And, Melinda's told me that, all my accounts love who I am and for what I do, not just by the color of my skin, just my whole attitude about everything. So I think that's very important that Brandon does as well. I think we have those kind of attitudes that, people appreciate us and want to do business with us.
Yeah, I would say so. I never go into an account or anywhere thinking like, oh, I'm black. Like, how are they
Right.
going to react to me?
Right.
And so with that being said, with it never being in my mind like that, I think it just kind of helps in the sense that, I don't have anything in the back of my mind that I take the wrong way because of something that I'm already thinking.
Right.
And so with that, I've had, great experiences. I would say 99% of my interactions and everything at CDC or at the market have been positive.
Yep.
Awesome.
Agreed.
Jamie, you mentioned at the beginning that CDC has progressed. There's a lot of changes have happened throughout the years. What are some things that, and you said there's still a lot of work to be done, and I completely agree with that. I don't think we'll ever be in a perfect place. But what would you say, in your opinion, or both of you would say, is that CDC can do to continue to drive this work forward?
Keep having the open lines of communication that we're having, so we can learn from each other, because we're all different. And the thing that I like about CDC is we haven't put, the color of our skin in the forefront. Always black. Well, I just stay away, or whatever it may be, whatever negative stigmatism. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking, but CDC has always looked at the individual first versus we've got to hire a certain amount of minorities or whatever to meet whatever number that they throw out there. So the simple fact that they hire you for who you are and not what you look like, that's important. And those are some of the things that I see have changed over the years. Because I will say, early on, it wasn't always that way with leadership. If they've got to, and they were pretty upfront about it. Well, we got to get these many minorities hired, and they just went about it the whole wrong way, and it put a bad taste in my mouth. But I had to hold that in because there was no one that looked like me that I could go and run and talk to about it. So from that aspect, I can say walking into the building at CDC, there's you, there's Dan, there's many other resources that I can openly go and talk to and know that it's going to be a confidential conversation and a very empathetic conversation. There will be things that'll be taken, seriously or consideration. There will be results. That's what I'm looking for, as a result.
I would agree with that. 100%. I would agree with that.
Awesome. So let's go back and think about June of last year. Black Lives Matter got reignited with everything that was happening. It's 6 months since it's all happened. First off, how do you feel now, 6 months later? Do you think we've progressed, made any positive changes, not from a company standpoint, but I mean from a societal standpoint? And where do you see things going moving forward?
I think as far as progression and change, that's something, that takes a while. And then I mean, even if you were to see progression today, if there were to be another shooting, we'd be right back in the same spot, that we were 6 months ago. So I think it's just one of those things that's going to take a lot of time and just a lot of change, but that's not something that's going to happen overnight at all.
Yeah, I agree. We've been looking for change for the past 50 some years, and it's a slow crawl. Every time we take, 5 or 6 steps forward, we take 10 back. So, for me, it's kind of dormant and kind of quiet right now. We're not hearing too much about Black Lives Matter or any activity, what's going on and what are they doing for the communities, any of that kind of stuff. But we're also not hearing from the other people that say, oh, it's just a big gang and all this other kind of stuff that's going on. So it's kind of a dormant thing right now. I wish it would be more of a positive situation where we would hear things of the good that BLM is doing in the communities versus having to go out and protest again, another Black life lost for social injustice. And then everybody just assumes that we're out there for the wrong reasons. We're down to tear stuff up and whatnot, when no, our message is very clear. We want equality and the same equal amount of justice for everybody else. So those are my thoughts.
Interesting. I completely agree with that. Now that you put it into perspective, I agree. You don't hear a lot of it as much now as you were the last several months.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone, I'm a person of color, so I can be empathetic and relate to some of the issues that a lot of these communities are facing across. Would you say, so let's say someone who agrees, hey, I want to make sure that this doesn't stay dormant. I want to continue to push this forward. What would you say to someone who would have those questions, right? No matter who they are, someone comes up to you and say, hey, I agree, this is dormant. You haven't heard a lot about the Black Lives Matter movement recently, and I don't want to wait until something else bad happens in order to continue that message forward. What would you recommend in those situations?
To get active in the communities, find out how you can get involved and be a voice, not only for yourselves, but also for the company that you're representing or whatever it may be, whatever platform it may be that you're representing. But if you want to get active in it, you got to get out in the community and push those initiatives of equality that we all seek. So it doesn't become dormant. So it becomes a topic and it's in everybody's face on a daily basis that we're not taking this lightly anymore. This is a very serious issue. And the only way to get through it is to keep in front of it and keep poking that bear until we can get the results that everybody's looking for.
Yeah. Um, that's a tough one. I mean, but I agree with Jamie when he says to get out in the community um, with an open mind, because no community is the same.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in your community, then all that stuff looks normal to you. But if you come to a completely different community, that norm is completely wiped away. So I would say, get out into the communities, but I would also say keep an open mind with that,
Yes.
because
Yep.
you could very well be in for a culture shock. If you been going to Total Wine and those places are nice, but then all of a sudden you have to go to Montbell Liquors, that's going to be different for you. So I think it's the same way with this. You just kind of have to go into it with an open mind, understanding that
Well
who's
said,
attitude is
Brandon.
going to
I
be different.
totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
No, I agree with that too. One of the things that have really resonated for me personally from the last year is just taking the initiative and educating yourself. Not just on what's happening today, but also on the history behind it and how we got where we are today. Because I think it puts into perspective on why these issues are being fought right now, right? Like, why are we fighting to change things? Why are we fighting to change racism? Where did it all started, right? And I think the importance of that is valuable. And even, I've taken the time to read really good books. And one good book that I would recommend for others to read is Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. That book in itself is really good because they look at questions that people have around why is this happening? Why are we talking about police brutality? And it gives a lot of background around the history, where we are today, and what we can do all to drive change. And it gives like specific details around things that you can, tangible things that you can do as an individual to educate yourself and also to support organizations across the country that are fighting against these things.
Awesome.
So those are things I would definitely recommend for others to do as well. I guess to just end on a positive note. So what's the one memory that you value the most from your experience at CDC? Just one memory. Huh?
If I were to go into something that was like race related, it was actually when I first started here at CDC, maybe like a year into it, and there was an account, which is so weird because the guy was like probably as dark as me, but he was I think he was Middle Eastern or something like that. I don't know exactly what it was, but I went in and he always gave me a hard time. And then so one of my managers, Javoric and Hudson at the time, they actually went in and spoke to him and found out that it was racial. And so they completely protected me from all of that stuff. They told me not to go in. They had my back on everything. And, everything worked out. Like I said, it was just a weird situation because, him and his daughter were like as dark as me. But, I don't know if he just had like that American black person stereotype in his head or whatever. But, those guys had my back like 100%. 100%. So that was a good thing.
Yeah, I would say I had a similar situation with that. Probably about around the same time, Brandon had an on-premise account that said some unsavory things about me, and I took it back to my boss and the president of the company, and they went with an empty truck and a blank invoice and picked up every single product and neon out of the account and said, until you can apologize to Jamie for what you said to him, we will not do business with you. And the guy said, oh, I was drunk and it was just joking, blah, blah, blah. And they stood their ground and said, nope, until you can physically meet with him and apologize to him in front of all of us, we're not going to do business with you. So, and of course, the guy went out of business. I mean, not because of us, but he eventually went out of business, but never got that apology, and we never sold 1 ounce of beer to him ever again.
Wow.
Wow, those are powerful situations.
Yeah.
The one thing I would add from my personal experiences being at CDC, I will say from a corporate standpoint, this is probably the best environment I've been in from a D&I standpoint. I don't think I've ever been able to see a company be as bold as they are when it comes to these type of topics, giving employees a platform to speak up, to share, to be vulnerable, I think is huge. And from that side of it, I think I value that being at CDC, and I appreciate it, especially because not a lot of companies are willing to do that and are too scared to do that. And I think from that's going to take CDC a long way, and is going to help create an environment where people can truly bring their true self no matter who they are.
Yeah. And I will say, since, our conversations back in June, that we have made strides. I've had people reach out to me and have, like you said, the courageous conversations with me because they just want to learn more about my upbringing and my experiences, and they're trying to, get a grasp and understand, how could that happen because they weren't brought up a certain way or brought up that way. And, some of them have gotten really, really angry. And to your point, the question is, how can I get involved? Again, let's get in the communities, that type of thing, and be a voice. So I think that's one of those things that we'll start to see happen here once the COVID bug starts to cease a little bit, that we can get more people out and actually do a field trip of going into the Black communities and supporting in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Well, I know we're short on time, so I really appreciate you guys really opening up on this topic. And I look forward to continuing this conversation in the future.
Good, Jennifer. I appreciate it. Hope we can. I'll follow up with the other guys and see if we can get another schedule. But Brandon, thanks for your time, man.